Hi, I'm Denise, a mom, a wife, a business owner, a friend, a sister, a recovering perfectionist, and host of the Working Moms Redefined podcast. Thank you for being here. Let's join together in community as we break free from the mom guilt that so many of us feel and thrive in our fulfilling careers and raising good kids. Welcome to this episode of the Working Moms Redefined podcast. I'm Denise. It is a pleasure that you are here. Thank you for investing time into yourself and making time to learn about different viewpoints of motherhood, right? We're in a sense of community where we learn best from others and honestly, other people's experiences and mistakes, and what beautiful lives we get to live together. This whole concept of Working Moms Redefined does not happen without my own mom. And this today is an opportunity for me to get to introduce you to one of my absolute most favorite people in the entire world and really shine the light on I am the mother I am today because of her and of because who she is and isn't. And that's okay. So, my mom, Beth Donley, has raised two beautiful daughters. She is a little emotional because, man, who doesn't love to have a good mother-daughter relationship? And if that's not the case for you today, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but maybe down the road you have hard conversations. And we have had our full fill of hard conversations, but they're worth it to be able to have good conversations like this. And one thing about my mom that stands out to me more so than several things is the fact that she completely adapted her life to fit what my sister and I needed in every stage, right? Whether that was taking jobs that allowed her to be home when the bus pulled off the road, whether it was a job that allowed her to stay home in the summer, or even a job that allowed her to have my sister stuck in the closet when a day that she was sick, but that's nothing that donut holes won't fix. If you're thinking, okay, how does Denise's mom, fit into this picture? Go back to episode 1. I would love for you to start from the very beginning and really realize the story behind Working Moms Redefined, how it came to fruition, how it was created to best serve you in the season that you are in, right? The concept is to be able to help you realize why you are who you are today and that it's okay that you are different than the mom that your mom is or was in that age that you might be raising kids right now. It's not always easy to manage mom guilt, right? Some days it's tougher than others. Sometimes we feel it more than others. But really, of course, our goal is to remove the pressure or the power that we give mom guilt. And for me, one of the largest things that I was holding in regards to mom guilt was the fact that maybe I wasn't the mom that I was raised by. And it's okay, right? We talk about that story. But I did feel guilt and I did feel shame for not showing up in the same ways that mom did when she was the mom that I am for our kids' age, right? We're 6.5 and 8 at the time of this recording. And that's okay. It's okay. But then I had to believe that it's okay, right? It took a lot of time for me to really break down all of the details, and we do that in previous episodes, so be sure and check those out. But after working through those thoughts, right, I knew that I, one, was not the only person having these thoughts, and two, wanted to help other moms know that there is possibility in getting onto the other side and raising your kids the way that you want to raise them. Now, mom has always told me that, but do we always believe what our moms say? At any age, right? And she's nodding her head not only because she's told us these things, but also because she didn't do things the way that her mom did either. And that's okay. So this concept, right, of what Working Moms Redefined is and was and will be needed to start with a conversation with mom. So before any of this could really take place, I knew that I wanted to make sure that my mom knew that this comment or the subtitle of "You're not the mom that your mom was and that's okay" was not anything because of her, but it truly is because of what she did. The role model that she was and the power that held was, this mission, I knew I wanted her to know that it isn't because of what she did, but rather is because of what she did. And those words are super powerful. And this is where we are. And so when I think about the podcast, I was like, how could I ever have anybody else as a guest to start this off than besides mom? And she didn't love that. She was like, I don't know. I don't know. But she's here, right? Because we can do hard things. So we really want to give power back to working moms of any age to know that life is different now. Yet sometimes we are comparing to what life was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now we know logically that that's not fair or smart, but we want to make sure that we are giving validation and credit to who and where you are today. And one thing that comes to mind is mom is and was a killer baker. Like, she's so good. And she was the first person to always make these sour cream cutout cookies for any class party, volleyball games. I mean, my friends still to this day now text me and ask, hey, can I have your mom's recipe for Christmas cookies? And I love sharing it because I'm not making them, but mom is. However, there was still guilt around the fact of, I'll never forget the first time that I did not have the time in my schedule to bake cookies. And I bought cookies.
And that's okay.
But that mom never bought cookies. One time I showed up with Oreos, and in my mind I was like, my mom would never have done this. That's guilt. That's mom guilt. Is it a joke? Absolutely. Did I feel bad for it? Yeah. Right? And so reducing that power. That being said, I know I've already said, hey, this is Beth Donley, my mom, but this is Beth Donley, my mom. And we're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for asking me.
She and I will probably tear up at some point because these conversations are powerful. And if somebody who is in the speaking space often can have these types of conversations, I would strongly encourage you to give credit to where credit is due. I'm proud of her for doing this today. It's out of her box. As she said before we hopped on, like, I'll play a piano solo in front of lots of people and I'll be fine. But this is not enjoyable for her. So the next time she comes back on here, it'll be a little less hard. And then we'll continue into questions because we learn best from those who have done it in the past, and then we adapt it to best fit us. So I think about, motherhood for you, not showing my age or anything, 30 years ago, it looks a lot different today, right?
Yes.
Tell us how some of your favorite things have really transitioned. What were some of your favorite things as a mom and how that made you who you are today?
Well, being a mom is the best, besides the point of being a grandmother as well. But just seeing you and your sister blossom in what you do every day, you amaze us now as you did then. And then seeing you become a mom yourself and raising awesome, respectful children. That's huge in this society right now, is to take the time to talk to them and make sure that they know how you would like them to act or whatever. So there's so many memories that we have together as far as cooking and baking and playing volleyball and in the house. I mean, no, should that have happened? But yes, it did.
Only a few doorknobs were on
exactly.
the floor.
And they're still that way. No. But those are the memories, the small memories that make, the moments that make great memories for us.
What she did not include was the memory of her. She is a board game queen, and she will not let you win, to the point where I'll remember playing, whether we were in the living room or around the table, and Trouble was her game of choice. And if she got you, so you pop it, right? And then if she landed on you, she would not just give you back your piece. She would throw it, and you'd have to go get your piece, and you'd walk back with that shame. And so
but it made you a better person, more competitive, did it not?
We'll say that that's where that came from. Absolutely. So, growing up, you grew up on a farm. You grew up with a mom and a dad and 2 other brothers. Did you always know that you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom?
I did. That was something that when your dad and I decided to have children, I guess there wasn't very much discussion in that area because I didn't want to miss anything. Did I miss things? Sure, I still missed them. But that was just something that was a priority to me. But that, 30 years ago, life looked a lot different than it does now. I mean, did we have to give up some things for me to stay home? Absolutely. I hope you guys didn't feel that way, but, we didn't have such and such because I wasn't working to bring in money to help with the family.
I don't know though, Mom. That brings up a really good point because I do remember there were some times, you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yes, I am.
There were some times when you had the discussion of money around the fact of, I'm able to do this with you, and so therefore we are not able to do this. And that's a good lesson to be taught. Mm-hmm. And so had I potentially not had the moment when you walk up to a water park in West Central Illinois and then you hear the price tag associated with that, and your mom looks at you in your inner tube and your swimsuit and your earplugs already in and says, we are not going to spend the day here. I can't imagine now as a mom the feeling that you must have felt. And then you turn around and then you tell two cute little girls like, hey, we're going home. Like that's hard. And I wonder if that event had not happened, one, obviously it stuck with me, and two, maybe I wouldn't know the power of hard work or the power of what happens when you use your money wisely. And yeah, you did give up for a certain amount of time yourself, but you gave us so much more than a water park, right?
But that was hard for me to turn around. And this day and age, I would have Googled it and seen how much it cost.
Good point.
Back then, you didn't know until you stepped up there. And then you're like, oh boy. Oh boy. And we weren't going to get to spend a lot of time. Right. And that's what it was. We were going to spend an hour or two because we had went to a doctor's appointment over there. And we always tried to do fun things. But, that's one that really sticks in there.
And it's okay, right?
Yes, but
in a transition period, right, that usually for you, transitions happened when Deanne, who is my younger sister by 2 years, or I hit a transition. So your transitions really happened when ours did. And so you began working outside the home again when I was in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Do you remember at that point in time, like any liberating or yet fearful thoughts that kind of went through your mind at that time when you were like, this is different? What does this look like?
That position that I took, though, was a position where I was at home for 2 days a week for 4 hours, and I only went in on Fridays for 4 hours. And I took Deanne with me. And like you said, she would take a nap in the closet in the office. But in that atmosphere, it was fine. It was something that, it was easy to do. I didn't feel like it was hurting you or her at all. For one thing, she thought it was great. She got to have donut holes. She got to watch a movie. That's kind of thing that, you didn't always do. So, like you said, each phase or transition of your lives, I was so fortunate to have a position that was part-time, but yet I was there when you left for school. I was there when you got home. I was off in the summers. How often can you have that? It worked out really well, each position. When I believe you were a senior and your sister was a sophomore, the medical insurance for our family was astronomical because your dad's a farmer, a self-employed farmer. And at that point, I had a chance to apply for a position that had really good benefits for our family. And like I said, you were a senior, she was a sophomore. But, one thing I didn't realize is she said to me later in life, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to not having you, knowing, was I available to her? Yes. But I figured you were old enough, and that's fine because then eventually I worked from home at that point. Within 4 years I was working at home, and then I was there all the time. But each phase, we had the perfect job opportunities for me.
And you worked hard though to get those, because you could have chosen something that wasn't that, and so you made a priority not only for us but for yourself to be in the areas that you wanted to. And so your answers to those questions is exactly what I expected, and part of what I hold in my mind as what a mom is supposed to do. And that was part of our original conversation, is like, please know I hold no guilt towards you in that, because that's the power of the story in which we tell ourselves. Because I am supposed to be like my mom was, because I was never exposed really, because I was always with her, as you heard, to anything else. And that's hard, because I know I'm not the only one that feels that consistently. And I'm blessed and lucky enough to not have somebody consistently guilting me about it or reminding me of what she did and that is different. And I think that's not always the case. There are some people that are like, well, I did this, right? How many times do we get unsolicited advice? And it really increases the mom guilt, if you will. And so as I worked through this concept of I'm not the mom that my mom was, and that's okay, I really had to amp up that belief, because all of those things are what I told myself, because those are my memories. And giving yourself permission to have different memories with your kids, knowing that their childhood and upbringing is still going to be wonderful, because if you care enough to even compare, then you're doing a good job, right? But that doesn't mean that the life that she lived didn't produce feelings of, mom guilt, or that you weren't doing enough as a mom, and all of those things that at that point in time probably did not have a label, but now we're like, oh, that's what that feeling was. So Mom, do you remember any times that you felt like you weren't doing good enough as a mom for Deanne and I?
There at times it was more, at first it was self-worth, because I was home. I didn't feel like I was helping with the family, finances and everything, but your dad would put me in my place, and he says, see what you're doing, Now, as far as regrets as a mom or something, I think we all have things that we wish we had done better. We wish, differently, yeah. But all in all, I did the best I could with nurturing your personalities and helping you become the person that we were hoping you to be. And that's the best thing you can do, is put your all into it. So.
Talk about punishments. I know that was a dynamic sometimes for you. You felt sometimes they were too harsh, or explain that.
Dad thought they were too harsh. I would...
give me an example. What type of punishment was too harsh? I mean, I have some, but...
The length of time.
Okay.
So I would do something, or you would do something, both of you, and I would give you a punishment, separately or together. And your dad would never bring that up in front of you. It was always behind the scenes, and he'd say, really? Don't you think that's a lot? Okay, I guess so. Yeah. So first of all, I don't know if you remember, I would come and apologize and say, there's not a book out there that tells me exactly what I should do at this situation. So I apologize and say, okay, instead of 2 weeks, maybe 3 days. That type of thing.
2 weeks to 3 days.
Well,
yeah, you did get softer.
Well, but your dad's the one that nailed me on that kind of thing. And he was right. You look back at it. That's why opposites attract. Because he can tell me, really? Really?
Okay, this is an interesting question then. As you kind of evaluate that situation, is it hard or is it interesting to see how you and Dad show up in me as how I parent?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. You're a list person. You're a box person, kind of like I am. But yet, you're like your dad and a lot, well, besides your thighs. But
we joke that we have Donley thighs. They're muscular.
But no, she is good at listening and then evaluating instead of just off the top, like sometimes I do. Well, a lot of times I do. But there's a good part of each of us, I think, in you that makes you the person you are.
Yeah, that's cool. When you reflect back on how you parented us, then I'm assuming you did the same thing that I did. You think back about how you were parented, right? And how were you raised? You similar in the sense of you grew up on a farm, your dad was a farmer, and your mom stayed at home. What was that like for you?
I had a good childhood. I really did. Now, my mom was a yeller, and I vowed to myself that I wasn't going to be a yeller. Did I mess up sometimes? Sure, I yelled up sometimes.
It's hard for me to remember those times, if so.
But I didn't want to be that kind of mom. Another thing was I never heard her apologize. So in my mind, she did everything perfect. So that was another thing. I wanted to show you if I made a mess in the kitchen, if I did something else that, I messed up. I made sure you guys knew that I was human and we all make mistakes, because I didn't feel that way. I really didn't think that was the case. But those are a couple situations that I knew I didn't want to be like.
You, at one point in time, you were cooking or baking, probably baking, and you spilled, I remember, the flour.
Oh my.
Right? And you made it a point to have Deanne and I come out and see the mess made of the flour.
Yes.
Pointing out those types of things is wonderful. Wonderful. So cool. But then I evaluate based on how you just said, you pinpointed some things as to what your mom did that you were like, I am never doing that. I do it too. Apparently it's I'm never making homemade cookies is what that is. But you think about, okay, that's interesting that you said your mom never didn't often apologize, right? And so you did. And so now sometimes I feel like I apologize too much. And do you see sometimes how it's like passed down generationally? And that's hard to break without also talking to the person. And I haven't always been that way. I mean, probably 2 years ago was finally when I was like, we have got to talk about this, or there's going to be a sense of resentment that I'm not sure we're going to be able to get past. Now, Mom, was that conversation fun? No, it was not. And
was there a lot of tears? Yes.
On both accounts,
yes.
Right? But the courage it took for both of us to show up, because not only does your relationship with your mom transition from how you were parented, there's that weird phase of I didn't yet have children, yet I was transitioning into having a husband, and we spent at least once a night with one another, and then that shifts. You were always very understanding in that, but there was that guilt and shame of, wait, I was a friend then for her, and now I'm not. And man, we're so hard on ourselves, right? It's a dynamic that doesn't often get talked about. And then, of course, at least in the back of my mind, the question is, how do you make it better? Right? It's hard talking about it, realizing that, yes, some of the things that you do are because of your parents, and some of the things that you don't do are because of your parents. And that's okay, right?
Yep.
So as you reflect back, you kind of touched on this a little bit as to how you were parented. In other ways, did it impact how you parented us?
There was just a lot of things that I wanted to spend time with you doing. Reading was a huge thing for me. I mean, I read, you were in my arms, and your dad would go, what are you doing? I'm going to read to them. And we were just discussing this last night. Reading, yes, and then you'd go and watch Friends, and but what great things came out of that.
I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you. So Friends, by far, favorite show. Mom loved it. We loved it. My sister and I loved it to the point where we would literally have marathons. We learned a lot of things, but we asked questions, right? Al was asking questions. So to the point where Deanne and I would still consistently watch it. We do till this, so many of us still to this day consistently watch it. Whether that's Seinfeld for you or Everybody Loves
Office.
Raymond, The Office. Yeah, that's a good one. We connected over that show. And the first time that I went to my now husband's house that he was living in Springfield, I walk in, and there is this huge poster of the Friends characters sitting on a beam. It was never, never part of the show. But I remember that, and I thought, I mean, I knew I really liked him, but if there's a sign that I'm going to marry this man, that is it. this week, we were cleaning out the basement. He was getting rid of a lot of stuff. I was so proud of him, right? Get rid of it. Get that clutter out. Yes. And he pulled that sign out. And he came to me. I was upstairs getting ready, and he was downstairs. And he goes, I think I'm going to get rid of this. Of course, I'm the one that's motivating him to get rid of everything. And I said, you cannot get rid of that. No. And he said, what are you talking about? And I retold him that story. And he goes, I must have forgotten that. And so then he left, and I never saw it again for a week. And then I go back downstairs. He had hung it over my workout area that I look at every day. And I'm like, I love it.
Yes.
Thank you. And it's little memories like that you think, oh my gosh, we're damaging our kids. Maybe I would not be married to the father of your grandchildren had you not exposed us to the world of friends.
I did not have a problem with it. It was your dad that had a problem with it.
I love it.
You know,
our friends also, our kids also love Friends. So, you know,
yes.
We're totally dating ourselves. But the same thing
it's
with
okay.
like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. They're all coming back. It's all coming back.
Yes.
So, again, we talked about at the beginning of this that our real true intent is to make people feel related, like they're not alone, that they are in a sense of community, that working moms, whatever work might look like for you, it's where you need to be. You know, I always love to keep in mind, be where your feet are. I love to keep it in mind. Doesn't also always mean that I'm able to apply it. But as you think to those listening, you know, to really redefine what us working moms are telling ourselves from your years of experience of parenting and friendship and working and all of those things, what wisdom or thoughts or advice would you really have and that you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, good on you for wanting a career that makes you happy. Mm-hmm. That's huge. For you to be happy and your family happy, it makes you a better mother, a better person. Just always, you know, everyone, try to be present with your children when they're there. I mean, when they come home from school, you don't have a whole lot of time, but be present. Put the phone down or the tablet or whatever you have. Make sure that they know they're your top priority. Getting on their level is huge. Just nurture them in every way that you can. Let them see your struggles and wins, and make sure that they understand disappointment and wins as well. Let them know that you have the same kind of issues sometimes that they do. Even it's a little different, of course, but it makes them a better person, just through and through. One big thing is you just gotta laugh together, because, you know, things that you think are huge right now, they're really not huge. You got to pick your battles. But those small little moments that you have with them become great memories.
I think of a couple times when Deanne and I had fibbed or lied. And I think about to the lies that we told. You totally knew we were lying. Oh my goodness, you knew. But you chose your battles because you knew that we were still good people, right? You looked past it because you knew our hearts. And I think that you had a large part, obviously, along with Dad, in developing those hearts. And I think some things, too, that are important is investing into relationships with your children once they get older.
Right. That's huge. You know, when they're their age, like the grandkids' age now, you can't be their friend. I mean, you can a little, but you're the parent. And eventually they will become friends. But right now, you know, you got to be the parent. And, you know, that was something that your dad and I knew that we wanted to nurture in you was, you know, we're here for you. We want you to be the best people you can be. But in the same thing, we want you to know that we are the parent, and we make hard decisions of punishment or whatever it may be. But in the end, you're going to be friends with your kids, you know, if you try and are open with them and listen to them.
You did a good job with that. One time, I think often when we hear nurture, right, like nurture, how do I do that, right? Well, mom always did a really great job of every night before bed, you'd come and sit with us, you'd rub our back. And I think that's part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much, was I was like, oh my God, my back rubbed.
But you'd also talk.
And I would talk and she would hear. So things like that, right? And then when they get older, planning birthday wine trips, or, my 21st birthday, all of my friends and my mom, right? We went to a casino. I was like, I'm going to put a $20 in this practically vending machine and get nothing back. She's like, yeah, it's so fun. She gave me a lot of money that night. I used one bill and I said, take it back. I don't want it. I don't want it. And so activities that are things to do, but also day-to-day things, are really great ways that you have nurtured. And so we would encourage you to do that too. Do I have a magic wand to be like, this is the perfect way? No, we all have our flaws, right? This relationship didn't happen overnight. It came through hard conversations and good conversations. And so, Mom, you did it. What a pleasure.
Well, I do want to say too, the things that I cherish now are as adults, I love those trips that we can take, or the little, annual Christmas shopping trip that we take every year. Those things, that's what we get to do now. Just because we can't do things every week or every month or whatever, I think we all look forward to those kinds of things.
Because it's a chance for me to not take care of the kids and to be taken care of as a child.
And you know what? I did the same thing. I'm at home. When you go to your home, mm-hmm. you go, I don't have to do that.
Right.
And that's, it makes my heart just happy.
Good. The first guest on our Working Moms Redefined podcast is my mom, Beth Donley. You did great. And again, I want to reiterate how cool it is that when we think about this concept of what Working Moms is, and you're not the mom that your mom was, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's because of the mom that you have been and that you continue to be, and even as a grandma, that allows really me to flourish and be the mom that I'm okay being. That's different than yours. So thank you for giving me that permission, even though it's different than how you parented.
Absolutely.
Yes. So most of us, right, have a level of not being good enough from time to time, or in some areas of our life, right? And really the best thing to aid in that is to join in community. So whether that's to have conversations with somebody in your life, or to consider really, just joining in on our community. And feel free to share this episode with anybody if you're thinking, oh man, some of those things really resonated with me. There's power in women joining together around a table for support and discussions, and honestly fun. So we would love for you to join in on our Working Moms Redefined community. We can learn more by following the show notes and seeing how we could connect outside of our time together. But just know and do not doubt that you are doing a great job as a mom, as a daughter, as a wife, as a sister, a friend. All of the titles that you are wearing, you're doing so well. You're here, and so you might want to up level a little bit, or find a season of contentment, and that's okay. Thank you again for joining us on this week's episode. When we embrace the fact that, you're not the mom that your mom was, and that's okay, we can live life fully and in such fun. Thank you for listening to today's Working Moms Redefined podcast episode. We would love to connect with you beyond. Check out the show notes for our socials, workingmomsredefined.com, and any templates that we may have mentioned in today's episode. It is my absolute pleasure to get to live life with you. And if you think someone would benefit from today's message, please share that with them so we can connect and help them in this next season of life. We learn best from one another and when we join in community, and we are so honored that you've chosen to spend some time with us to thrive in your career and raise great kids. Thank you.